Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of my wonderful and beautiful little subscribers out there. And how I love you all so, and I hope that you're all super duper well, super duper wonderful, and super duper delicious. That doesn't mean no. Okay, and I hope that life is treating you most deliciously wherever you are in the world, and I hope that the weather is better in your neck of the woods than it is in my delicious little babies. Now then, so what have we got? It's a very grey sky, very little, I'm talking like this, bit of blue that you can see. It's gone a little bit chillier, but this morning was milder. Okay, my little babies, that's in our old Birmingham, in our old England, my little babies. Now then, 3, 2, 1, my juice little lights. Thank you, little lights. You're delicious and bright. Yeah. So we're back to half and half again, my delicious little babies. Now then, so right, what do I have to say? Okay, so I wouldn't normally advertise just going over the dots. I wouldn't normally advertise, like a newspaper, but this is on the Daily Express. Both are on YouTube, my delicious babies. Okay, then I want to talk about something. Okay, so this is a daily. It's not it's capital D Daily space capital E Express. Okay. They happen to have 307,000 subscribers, my delicious little babies. And the video should read, Chaos in Birmingham, yeah, our Brummyland, as streets descend into total war zone. Okay, my delicious little babies, so I'm just going to repeat that again for you, shall I? Chaos in Birmingham as streets descend into total war zone. Okay, my delicious little babies. Now then, whether this is true or not, I'm not sure whether this is AI or whatever it is. I'm really just not too sure. If it's real, I have a feeling it possibly was real. Okay. Well, let me tell you, that was some firework display. My delicious little babies, okay? There we are, it really was, okay? Now, what was my thoughts when I was watching this? It was over 2 minutes long. I've watched it about 4 times now, my delicious little babies. My thoughts was Star Trek. Okay, like you've got those, they brought them out. That doesn't mean no, just got an itch. They brought them out years ago, my babies, for the little bands to play with, like Darth Vader and, and all this, whatever it is. And I was never into Star Trek, but there we are. I do happen to know many who adore Star Trek, you know what I mean? But it's like lasers, but like fireworks. And then at other points it was fireworks. Now I know exactly where this place is, because what it is, it's the Aston Expressway. I mean, I used to, go over it, whatever o'clock, flipping hundreds of times, my little babies. Now, if you look at the one side, it's got the Birmingham University. But if you go round the back, it's got Onyx. Okay, my babies. So for those of you, please, if you'd like to go on quack, quack, go and just look at the Onyx, what the Onyx means. And it's a tall building, my babies. And that's what also came into my noddle. Do you see what I mean? Okay. So it's hidden, but when you're coming round on a bus or in a car, you can see it on the left-hand side. But where they were, okay, I do not need to stumble. Where they were, it's where there was an old pub as well, because that used to be like a student pub. I do not know if it's still there now. The building's still there. The architecture is beautiful. If you look at the older pubs, there we are. The architecture is absolutely stunning. But what I'm saying to you is that, it looked like a total mayhem, my babies. But then again, saying that, like I said, if it's real, Okay, then it's real. I feel so real. I feel so real. Okay. So what year was that song, My Delicious Babies, anyway? So when you actually looked at it, I actually thought, flip me. I thought I'm 52 and I've never saw that. My Delicious Babies. But what was maybe telling, there we are, was towards the end where they had 6. You have to look at the numbers now. 3, 6, 9, 11, 13, 17, 33. Okay, my babies, you have to look at the numbers. Okay, that and of course, amidst all of this, apparently, please just do not quote me. I'm just saying that there was one stabbed. Somebody got stabbed. Okay, my babies. Okay, but something else that was telling was the old bill. It's like somebody had taken a bit of footage and like they're acting all, like they're on a stage. There we are, my delicious baby. She's still there. So you have to look very closely at it, okay? Do I genuinely feel it was real? I'm not so sure. Okay. I mean, if it was, it was, but I'm not so sure it was. Okay. Maybe it was a bit of a, let me hear you say, well, say boom, boom, boom. Now let me hear you say, well. What year was that song now, Delicious Little Babies? You know what I mean? Maybe it was a bit of that. But towards the end, you seen 6, you count it with the old bill, with their shields, okay? It just looked like, there we are, it was staged. Okay, Mars babies. Anyway, nevertheless, it was really good to watch. Okay, Mars babies. But of course, with any type of firework, there has been a real laugh where if it blurs up in your bird trace or something, Mars babies. Well, that's not very sociable. Do you understand what I mean? Anyway, well worth a watch of that, Mars babies, Kai. But of course, it can only happen in Brummy Land. There we are, Mars babies. So just let you know. I mean, I never knew this until years ago, but I was told that some of the toughest, there we are, gangs, okay, who operate, okay, are not very far from where I live, Martin, I suppose. And I've got to be honest, hand on my heart, to my genuine heart, I never knew that. I genuinely never knew that. But yeah, they can be very, there we are, let's just say. You don't want to just join the dots. You don't want to walk into them, you know what I mean? Mad babies anyway. But I do get, there we are, from time to time to find out things now. There we are, mad babies. I found out rather a lot over the years, but I just do not say it, okay? Mad babies, okay? Now, the next one, Mad Babies. Now, this uploader happens to have 1.22 million subscribers, Mad Babies, just going over the dots, the numbers, and the letter. Okay, now, this one here, Mad Babies, are blessed, and with anybody not in that way, is called, in the old space bar in YouTube, 2C. I'll spell it for you. TOUSR TV, capital TV. Okay, my delicious babies. And the video should read, Live. Islamists rise up in Birmingham to hunt down Jews. Okay, my delicious babies. So I'm just going to repeat that again for you, shall I? Live. Islamists rise up in Birmingham to hunt down Jews. Now, I remember advertising our dear Maya. Oh gosh, forever a clock ago. I remember advertising him. Okay, he was only on something like, was it 300,000 or something, mad little babies anyway. Once I've advertised, you know what I mean, I do as much advertising as what I can, and then, then I over and out, do you know what I mean? Then I just sort of go, and the reason why I do it, I've explained this many times, I do this as a hobby, okay, as well as my readings, and I just give out information. Of course, with some of the alternative media, they choose in their own time, don't they? When to drop something out, because there we are, I do see it, yeah, and I do hear. Do you see what I mean? Okay, but it doesn't happen straight away. That's how it works. It's all, there we are, drip feed, drip feed. Do you see what I mean, mad baby? So at the end of the day, I do not, you know, do all the journalism. I do not want to be a journalist. I've never wanted to be a journalist. It's not something in my vocabulary, my noddle, that I've ever wanted to be. It's just not for myself. You know what I mean? For myself, I'm more practical, really. You know what I mean? I'm more hands-on. There we are. You know what I mean, Mads, babies? You know what I mean? Get the job done. But what happened here with dear Maya Tusi, bless him, he found himself, and I will say, bless the other man as well. There we are. It goes two ways, not just one. And just let you know, Rebel News was there anyway. I've never really been into Rebel News. That's no disrespect. I've just never been into them. Do you know what I mean, Martish babies? Yes. So Maya, at one point, I've got to be honest, he did look a little bit. I'm sorry, Maya, to have to say this. Well, actually, I'm not, dear Maya. And like I said, not in that way, not in that way. Oh, bless him. I think he's just recently got married, bless him. You know, his wife, what's the name? Danielle or Daniela. Okay. Yeah, she's proper English, you know, mummy, daddy, you know, like that. Okay, Mardish babies. But but bless, it is the Englishness, isn't it, Mardish babies, for some. But bless their beautiful, dear little souls, you know what I mean? For others of us, we just, there we are, be done just saying things the way they are, you know what I mean? Things the way they are, do you know what I mean? But bless their beautiful, dear little soul, and all I can really say is our beautiful, dear little Maya, not in that way, not in that way, and our beautiful, dear little Daniela. May you have the most beautiful marriage ever. Okay, no problems. Okay. Uh, but it turns out that what happened in this is that, well, to tell you the truth, that it was, what do you call, I don't know what you call it these days. I mean, decades ago, sorry, well, no need to stumble there. Well, actually, yes, there is. You could say, well, it's a difference of opinion, that's it. These days, it's a debate or whatever else it's flipping called. Okay, there we are, Mardish babies. But years ago, it's just a difference of a view, difference of opinion. There's none of all these other damn words now that come into it. It's just simple things. You either agree with somebody, you do not. Simple things. But this Asian man now was calling Maya Tusi a gaslighter. Now, I remember a long time back on one of my videos, on a couple of them actually, and I just said the one thing that I would never want to see is Maya Tusi, don't go down certain roads. Do you know what I mean? Because when you go down certain roads, there we go. I've just got it in front of me. You're going to hit a T-junction. There we are. Do you know what I mean, Martish babes? What does a T-junction mean? So up the junction means you're going up the junction. So you're going straight, isn't it? But if you've got a T, you've got nowhere to go. Okay, Martish babies. So... But poor dear Maya, bless him, he did look, there we are, a bit stressed at that point, okay? Because when you're confronted with someone now, and he's talking about history as well, so what's important about this video, Mardish babies, is to listen to two sides. There we are. That is what's important here. And that is what I feel that For some, there we are, they seem to miss, okay? But then Maya and his team, part of his team, got shipped off with the old Bill, what we call police, over to a dark spot. Well, that reminds me, when I was watching that, and it casted my nodder back. Now, if I go back to, oh gosh, I'm going back years ago. That doesn't mean, no, just I've got an itch. It was called Pipe's Park. Parpes Park, Marslish babies. And the one year, apparently, I do not know the truth for sure because I do not know. But that's not long before they stopped the bonfires. Okay, they stopped doing bonfires. Okay, somebody was raped, in the darker part. Okay, a dear young lass apparently, but I do not know if that's true. So that's no disrespect to anybody out there. If it was true, I'm very sorry if it was, but I'm just saying. But anyway, but that's that. Then not long after that, they stopped the bonfires. So it was like giving an excuse, you know what I mean? That one's can wander off and everything. So I'm not sure what the truth was, okay? And I'm just being honest, but I am going back years ago, okay? But when you're brought over to a dark spot, as Maya said, bless him, he said, well, hold on a minute, this is not very safe here because you're in a dark spot. Absolutely, I totally agreed with the video so far that I was listening to because it was banging correct. So I would, the old Bill, take Maya and his team over to a dark spot with him. Maybe if we look ding, ding, dong, dong, that's telling whoever's watching the video, there we are, something else as well, that there's something very dark going on, if you follow me. My delicious babies, yes. I can only hope, dear Maya, and your dear wife, that you're not, there we are, for even sake, getting yourself up, there we are, from the neck up, isn't it? That you're not getting yourself into too much trouble. Now, what I will say is, but bless him and bless his channel that it's risen. But there we are, for even say it, at what cost, okay? And dear Maya, behind your ear, go and get it sorted out, okay? There we are, because I clocked that very well, okay? Maybe a bit of I don't know, maybe a bit of celery, whatever. Okay, my delicious dear little Maya, not in that way anyway. But anyway, I received a knock on the door yesterday evening. There's somebody at the door. And when I answered it, because I happen to be with Scottish Power, okay, I've been with them since I moved in. I just thought, well, it's Scottish Power, just stay with it, okay? Because in reality, it doesn't matter who you go with, no matter what electricity supplier, they all say, oh, we're going to give you this deal, we're going to give you that deal. Then they flipping skank you, man. There we are. That's what they do. They skank you. Do you see what I mean? And before you know it, you're paying X, Y, and Z. And you're back in, I love little rats, it's just figure of speech. You just see it back in the rat race, okay? So I thought, I'll just stick by what I stick by. Anyway, so this young man turned up yesterday, very pleasant. I had a short conversation with him and he was asking me, bought his little iPad, bless him. And he said, would you like an upgrade, my meters, my prepayment meters? I said, no, thank you. I said, I'm really all right, you know what I mean? He said, well, there's these new meters, and they do all these wonderful things, you know what I mean? Bless his dear soul. And I said, no, thank you. I said, whatever's smart. I said, there's nothing smart about it. Do you see what I mean? But there was things that he was saying to me, like he was looking into his iPad, and as he was looking, it's like his eyes were wide open. He said, "Will you just look after yourself like this?" And I said, "So will you look after her as well? Do you see what I mean?" And he said, "Oh, Manchester, Liverpool," and then he said, Birmingham, yeah. And he said, "Oh, this is a bit rough round." I said, "No." I said, "You could say that about anywhere." I said, my road, there we are, is lovely. You know what I mean? There's certain roads where you wouldn't even feel that they're living where I live. Okay. But then, because he mentioned about down the road now then with Aston Villa and Israel. What is it, Tel Aviv or something? Okay. Which that's why Maya Tus was there, and of course Rebel News. The fact of the matter is that you have to read in between the lines. It's really important to watch, there we are, videos, Martish babies, if you follow me. Yes. But the fact of the matter is, he said, he says, so you got to go back to Manchester, where's the fact? Yeah, anyway, he says, I said, well, you got like relatives here in Birmingham? He said, I do, he said, I'm sort of between Manchester and Birmingham. It was just really odd. But when I was listening to my Tuesdays video, something struck me. Anyway, Martish babies, there we are. So I'll just leave it like that. But anyway, I mentioned to your young man there, of course, we skip past that, hop, skip and a jump. I'm not going to be having new meters. I'm quite happy, there we are, with what I've got, okay? But the fact of the matter is just what he was saying. There we are. Do you see what I mean, Martish babies? And I just turned around and said, so, well, really, I said, basically, the football match shouldn't even go ahead. Because if you know it's going to cause trouble now, it shouldn't even go ahead. That's the way I seen it. But how many times have I said on my videos over the months, you've got to watch the ball, you know what I mean, Martish babies? Yes, okay. All very interesting. But the truth of the matter is, from what I could see, I haven't heard anymore, so I do not know anymore, okay? But wasn't they, the way I see it, is harping it up? You get a lot of that, don't you, on YouTube now, Martish babies? It's like you cannot comment on some videos. It's called harp. So you could harp somebody, and then they get so many points. There we are. Do you follow me, Martish babies? Yes. That's what I'm telling you. Finally, my delicious little babies. But bless dear little Myra, and bless, his dear little wife, Daniela, okay? I just heard, Maya, please, there we are. I beg you with the Lord of mercy, just, there we are. Just watch what you're doing now, isn't it? There we are. Just watch what you're doing, isn't it? Okay? Because it's good to get to that number, for yourself, because there we are, bless you. That's where you want to get to. There we are. But at what price, isn't it? There we are. That's all I'm saying. Okay? I do not be nasty towards anybody who has a lot of, get sponsors, whatever they do. No, 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 no. I do not. That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for, there we are, is I'm an outsider looking in. There we are. And that's what I do. And then when you see what the flex, there we are, really are, then there we are. Then ones must ask themselves a damn question, isn't it? Always be on the ball. There we are. Always be on the ball. Okay? Do not fall into the pit. It's very easy to do because there's only one benefiting, isn't it? So let me go on to the last thing. So today I went somewhere, my delicious little babies, okay? And all I would urge, I'm not going to say where the place was, of course, even though the spies are making out that they're not spying on me. There we are. They clearly still are. Okay? It's just that they're doing it, there we are, very subtly. Okay? It's very subtle. Okay? So it's like we don't want your woman there to see, there we are, what we're doing. But instead they leave lots of suitcases everywhere. Well, I'm not going anywhere, my delicious babies, at least until next year. And when I do go, I'm not going to advertise it on my video. I will just go. Yeah, I'll just go. Okay? I'm not going to advertise it. I'm not going to do anything. Okay? But it's amazing, all little suitcases, isn't it? My delicious little babies, do you see what I mean? Yes. Yeah, I'm clocking it. There we are. Everywhere. Suitcases everywhere. Say a lot about suitcases, couldn't we? Mind you, we could say that good things come in small packages, you know what I mean? Like what's gone on over our years with dear ladies now, bless their beautiful, dear little souls who have found themselves through no fault of their own. There we are, in a suitcase. Okay, my little babies. So I'm hoping that whoever's doing this, that they're not taking a complete piss. I'm thinking now that they're threatening me in some way, because if that is what their thoughts are, well then rock on, roll on, and fuck off nicely, because I ain't having it. All right? I'm just done telling you, to whom it may concern. And if anybody feels that my swearing is inappropriate, you do not have to watch my channel. Please move from my channel, skip it. Because YouTube shadow bans me anyway. They're very good, there we are at that. Okay. So, and then when I'm not seeing that, I see the odd little sock here and there. Okay. So, what is it that I want to say? So, I want to talk about something lovely. So, I went somewhere today, my delicious little babies, okay? And the reason why I went, anyway, that's all irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, what I would urge ones to do in our old England, or wherever you are in the world, my beautiful little babies, okay, is I went to somewhere where, well, basically it's a nudist hotel, okay? And I had some, there we are, really lovely conversations, okay? I mean, I may have had the dressing gown on or the towel, you know, like over, you know, the little bits now then. But I had lovely conversations, and the energy when I walked into the hotel spa was absolutely banging. I'm not going to say which hotel spa it is, but please, my delicious babies, I would urge ones out there to really, there we are, go naked. Okay, my delicious babies. What I thought was really beautiful, there we are, and I'm going to say this, what I thought was so super duper beautiful about this is that you have husbands and wives, so they both go there. So it's like a little hotel, so you can spend the night there. You know, you pay a bit of ching ching ching. Okay, you can have a meal or whatever else or beverage. You can go in the hot tub. In the summer, clearly you can walk around the gardens, naturist, nudist. You go in the sauna nude, you know, then they just walk. It's like, how can I explain it? For those who walk around the home, you know, like they probably had a bath or a shower or something, and they walk around with a towel or something. But the difference is that, I mean, for some of them they did, okay, they, you know, but some of them can just, you know, then go, you know, to the, you know, to another part of the establishment, and then they say, oh, what would you like, you know, and they're just there, you know, they're just nude. And for myself, you know, I've got to be honest, babes, I just thought that was so beautiful. But what I really thought was beautiful is that when husbands and wives go, because look at that, Madlish babies, what is that showing? It's showing that there's no secrets. You know what I mean? I mean, I was talking to a dear man today. I mean, he had, you know, not in that way, not in that way. He had like a towel, you know, anyway, he's talking to me. And he said, I've never heard of this place. And I said, so, well, I've known it long time, for years and years and years, because I used to live up the road from there. And I remember before it was that place, it used to be down the road, a little bed and breakfast. And I did some taster readings because I asked the owner, I said, could I please do some taster readings, please? You know, I'm going back many, many, many years ago now. And yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, I got a few through the door, you know what I mean, at a very small price. But it was more about to get your name out there, do you know what I mean, my babies? Anyway, but yeah, then that one closed down because it got taken over by a nursing home, you know, bulldozed. And then, you know, he moved it up. But when you walk in, babies, there we are, I swear down, no jerk. the energy is beautiful. Now, with myself, because I'm a professional tarot reader, clairvoyant, and qualified angelic healer. Anyway, I've always been a healer, but qualified angelic healer, it just means you can have, uh, let's just say, a lot more angels when you're doing your healing. It was just a wonderful experience to go in there and said, "Would you like tea or coffee?" I said, "Could I have a coffee, please?" He said, "Oh, would you like cappuccino?" I said, "No." So I said, "This is the trouble with today." I said, "When I go back," I said, "I'm 52 now." I said, "When I go back," I just like just a normal coffee, sugar and milk, isn't it? There we are, just a normal coffee. None of this fancy whipped up crap, you know what I mean? If I want a bit of flipping cream, I'll just pour a bit of cream in, you know what I mean? Martin's baby's guy. So there we are, how it's been marketed. But anyway, it was just so wonderful. So I sat there and there was a song actually that was playing. Oh gosh, Marvin Gaye. I want to get it on. You know that song? You don't have to worry that it's wrong. If the spirit moves you, let me groove you. Ooh, let your love come out. You know what I mean? You know that song, right? But I thought, flip me. First time I'd ever been there, and I thought, what a banging energy. There we are. It was just something else. So I'm not going to say, because I'm not sure that the owner would be liking that, okay, Martish babies. But please, I urge anybody. Now, I happen to know others which are doing Martish babies, so I've got to end on this. You do see me smile sometimes, but I feel for a positive. Do you know what I mean? I do know some who go to nudist beach, they go abroad, they go to nudist beach and everything, Martish babies, okay? Usually, they're not with husbands and wives. They usually take, friends with benefits, you know what I mean? But just marries a guy, they have a little bit of fun now, you know what I mean? Anyway, a rumble in the jungle, and then they come back home and then everything's, like that, man, just babies anyway. But it's true, because there we are, because I do know some, okay? I got offered, actually. I said, "Would you like to?" I said, "No, thank you." No. I said, "I'm all right." I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing like that. I wasn't in no, do you know what I mean? But I have been offered. Okay, bad respect. I said no. You see, as far as I ever went was topless. Martin Shisselkaba's Kai. I had a bit of an issue here now. Anyway, but if you go back years ago, okay, well, I mean, I never personally knew of any nudists, but I wouldn't do it anyway because I have my beautiful little baby daughter, my eldest beautiful little baby daughter, because my youngest beautiful little baby daughter, she wasn't a twinkle in the eye at that time. So I wouldn't do it anyway, Mardish babies can. But I do get, there we are, why ones do it. And because I had the conversations, I had one with a dear man, I had one with a dear woman, bless her, okay? And, well, what's the harm in it? I mean, when we were born, there we are, we were born in our birthday suit. It's only when To Whom It May Concern came along now then, to get one's trained, there we are, to be little men and little women in little suits and little shoes and little boots and little trainers and little coats and little jackets and little three-piece suits and little hats and little gloves. Do you see what I mean, okay? I asked somebody today when I was sat talking to them, he absolutely adored it. He really, really did. I said, it's just so lovely, isn't it? I said, the energy. Now, I can feel if an energy is bad when I walk into somewhere, but there was no bad energy there. Not at all. It was just a beautiful and relaxing. I mean, I was fully dressed, my delicious baby's cave, but it was so beautiful and relaxing, and just come through the door with a towel on, and they just walk, naked. Oh, you just don't take any notice. There we are. I swear down, you just don't take any notice, okay? Whatever somebody's shape or size is, it doesn't matter. They're happy. There we are, just being who they are. And I was talking to this dear woman, and she said, "Oh, I'm here with my husband, she said yesterday, she said, we spent, the day, herself and her husband, they're older, probably I'd say about 60. And, so, oh, we was in our room and we were just, basically naked. And then, and then said, oh, we come down to the sauna, have a little walk around, go into the hot tub or whatever, you know what I mean? And just walk around naked. Well, what's wrong with that? If you look at parts in the world and in Africa as well, you still see the dear women there now then. They don't have any brassiers. They do not have, they walk around like that. They probably have a little bit covering their little lettuce, as I call it, you know what I mean? Like you go to the toilet, you shake your lettuce, you know what I mean? But they have a bit of that, the men are just, they just got no top on, and everything like this now then. So I feel that's where I feel, not in a bad way. I've got to be careful how I say it here now, because I'm talking about adults, okay? So you have to be, do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, okay? But I was talking to your man there now, who I was having a conversation with while I was having my coffee. And I said to him, I said, do you remember? I said, when, before we had tarmac, I said we had dusty roads and we had our beautiful trees and it was just dusty roads. I said, you go back in history. As I said, you probably wouldn't remember it, just like I wouldn't remember it unless you go to somewhere, like I suppose like a forest where it's more natural, it hasn't been taken over by the tarmac. You know what I mean? Mads, you should look about this car. I said, but really, they just wanted to cover everything over, and to make it harder for our beautiful trees, there we are, to breathe. But if you look at the tarmac over time, what happens is that the trees want to breathe, there we are, so much that they start breaking through the tarmac. I'm hoping that you're getting me, Mardish babies. And you know what your dear man there said to me? He said, yes. He said, I never thought of it like that. And I said, yes. I said, that's how I feel. I said, because I just adore, there we are, nature. I adore trees. I adore everything. Do you see? But when I seen this, I thought, well, for adults, I thought, how beautiful. And to be fair, it's not like perverted. It's not pervy. Like nobody's taking any notice, they're just walking, just like when I've talked to ones and they said, oh, I've been to nudist beaches and everything like, and some of them told me, Martin, I said, in fact, they said it to myself, I never said it to them. They said, well, some of them, wanna have sex on the beach, come and move your body, you know what I mean? Swing off the old chandeliers. And I said, well, what does anyone say? Because it just makes you, do you know what I mean? I sort of go, like that when they're talking to you, you know what I mean? And I said, no, nobody takes any notice. I said, nobody takes any notice. I said, if somebody's having a rumble in the jungle with somebody on the sand. I said, no. I said, just walk past. So, I mean, you learn loads of things, don't you, Martish babies? That's the point that I'm making. You really make memories by talking to mankind, okay, and hearing what they've got to say on the topic and subjects. But please, if there are any couples out there, or even if you're single, why don't you try it? Whether it's in England, whether it's in any other part of England, whether it's in another country, go and try it. Because I feel that that's what ones want. Like where ones, there we are, just want to break free. You know what I mean, Mads, I suppose. I mean, please don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it'd still take me a little bit of, you know what I mean, Mads, just the babies, if you know what I'm saying. Okay? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll do the topless bit. There we are. Because you fret me, bitch, you know what I mean? You fret me, bitch, you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, sorry, Mads, anyway, I'm very proud of what I've got. Okay, Mads, babies. I just feel a little bit, You know what I mean? In case somebody, you know, to be looking at you. But on a serious note, why don't you try it? Because I feel like that's what's happening. I mean, like I said, adults, there we are, only okay, marriage babies, okay, where ones can go, there we are, to be free. I want to break free. You know what I mean? And I genuinely feel, marriage babies, there we are, that ones would feel so much super duper duper better. Okay? I mean, I've got to be honest, I've never totally, in all my decades, ever totally walked around my home naked. I never ever have. I probably had a towel on. There we are. To be honest, marriage babies, I probably had a towel on. Okay? But I've never ever walked around totally naked. But of course, you could have millions of others, you know. They go from the bathroom or they go to the kitchen. I mean, some, I mean, they're like little chefs, aren't they? You know, they put the little apron on, you know, and all you can see is their little bum. You know what I mean? Mads babies, Kai, and some of them dish up meals, you know, to their guests or whatever, you know, and you know, that's how they like to be. But if you look at it, it shows you one thing, doesn't it, Mads babies, that really maybe ones are getting so fed up. There we are being covered all of the time. You know, they just want to be free, just to do what they want to do. Do you know what I mean? And not have somebody henpecking them. You know, just figure of speech, Martish babies, or giving them GBH in the ear roll. You know, they can just go somewhere, be free, feel like they're who they're supposed. There we are, who they're supposed to be. But I just had a wonderful experience today. But like I said, I was fully dressed. Okay, Martish babies. But what a wonderful place to go. There we are. And I'm being genuine. It's a wonderful place to go into. And I genuinely feel that ones are just not taking one bit of notice. They couldn't care one iota about how somebody else looks. They just couldn't care less. They're just there we are, just to be free. And I suppose in a way, now some would say, well, you can do that in your own home. Yes, you could, but how many, if you really look at this, there we are, very seriously, Martish babies, how many, if they're doing it on their own, there's no fun, is there? Whereas at least if you're somewhere, you can be walking around and free, you could talk to somebody else. So therefore you're engaging, there we are, in conversation with somebody else. But they're not looking you up and down as if to say, oh, you know, I'd like to have a rumble in the jungle. You know what I mean, Martish babies, or swing off the old chandeliers. It's like in natural. There we are. There we are. It's so hard to explain, but I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm not going to mention the place, but I hope that they get super duper busy. Okay, Martish baby. Anyway, there we are. They seem to be doing extremely well. Martish babies are probably not this time of year. I wasn't getting that across my shoulders, but you know. But what I'm saying to you is that you know. I'd love adore, there we are, their numbers to go super duper high, you know what I mean, Martish babies. So anyway, and that's the end of my video. But yeah, just a lovely experience, you know. I mean, it doesn't bother myself. I mean, you see one bum, you see them all, don't you, Martish babies, you know what I mean? Let's not split hairs here. Do you know what I mean, Martish babies, guy? It's like, if you see a woman, you don't look at a woman and think, okay, well, you know, I'm looking at you. No, you do not do that. You're having a conversation at eye contact. There's none of this. What year was that song? There's none of this. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at somebody else like they're inferior to yourself, because you're not doing that. You're just engaging. There we are, in a normal conversation. The only difference is that they're undressed. I mean, the dear woman there, she had a dressing gown on, admittedly, okay, but she, bless her dear little soul, she let it all hang out, okay, and her husband was waiting for her upstairs, you know, because they would have been vacating. And the other dear man, he just had a towel around his, you know, just to cover his, from his waist down, but, you know, it was just lovely just to, there we are, just to talk to others. and just to get their take on how they felt. And I thought it was just wonderful. And I thought, well, I best not film anything. It's not fair to do that, okay? It's really just not fair to do that at all. So I wouldn't do it. I never even thought about it, to be honest, my delicious little babies, because it's there we are, privacy, okay? And they've paid, there we are, some change, there we are, to stay there to do that. Do you see what I mean? But if more did that, spare a thought. Wouldn't it take, there we are, more change away from, from all of the countries like China, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, all different places, Malaysia, everywhere, okay, from having to make so many clothes? Because ones wouldn't want so many clothes, would they, Marty, babies? Do you see what I mean? I'm only just, but like I said, I'm talking about adults only. I keep saying that, okay, my little babies. But what I'm saying is, if somebody just had, do you know what I mean? So it goes to show that when I was talking, as though they can have their, I said, oh, is it a treat? When I spoke to a dear woman, she said, yeah, it's just a treat. Like her family wouldn't. I said, do your family know? She says, yeah. They said, oh, we could never do that. Do you see what I mean? Because if you look at it, that is how one's been made to feel, that they couldn't do anything like that. Do you see what I mean? Like, so you can imagine somebody at the weekend, they go out for a few pints, they get themselves all, shoosed and spruced, and shower and shave. That's what I'll say, Martin, the baby's car. Get themselves down the pub or the club, you know what I mean? But imagine if you had a massive club where everybody was naked, just adults. I'm talking Martin, the baby's car. Everybody was naked. Now, I mean, I'm pretty sure that probably these places do exist, but probably not as many now. I wouldn't say. My delicious babies. I'd probably say it's more, there we are, before I even say it. I just got that, house parties. There we are. I just got that, house parties. It's more house parties. My delicious babies, you know what I mean? But if one's felt freer, and say, for example, instead of just a husband going somewhere or just the wife going somewhere, because they both go somewhere, there we are. There's no secrets. You know what I mean, Maddish babies? I just thought it was beautiful. I really, really thought, not in that way, not in that way. I just thought it was beautiful. The energy of the place, everything. It's just for once, just to be naturist, just to be who they are. Okay, and that's how I'm going to leave my video. So anyway, I'm leaving food for thought, my dish babes. I think I'll put as a title to my video, Let's Get Naked, for adults only, my dish babies, you know what I mean? Anyway, so wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon or evening, please have a super duper delicious time. You only get one life, my little honey bunnies. Sending peace, love, harmony, and bright blessings to each and every one of you. And may your beautiful little selves and your beautiful little families, may you all be fully protected. And how I love you also, okay? So you just take care. But you should know with myself, there we are, that will just, whatever comes out my trap, there we are. You know what I mean, my dish babies? But I do not feel like I'm talking shart. I feel that too many feel, there we are, too closed in. And of course, I've been seeing a lot of, ones carrying boxes. I'm living in the box. I'm living in the cardboard box. You know what I mean? So you're seeing it all, my dish baby. I'm just not taking any notice. I actually had a really lovely time today as a pleasant experience. Not in that way, not in that way. I was fully dressed. Okay, I was just talking. The point is, I really enjoyed, I really engaged. There we are in conversations. And I thought the energy was beautiful. Okay, Martish babies, but of course, when they're clothing everybody, if you look at Africa, okay, I've watched plenty of documentaries on this, Martish babies. You ask them, would they swap their laugh for ours? They say no. There we are. And I've watched plenty of documentaries on this over the years, Martish babies. So what is that telling you? Ones want to be free. They want to feel free. You know, they just want to, like that dear woman said, basically, just let it all hang out. You know, she said, you know, you're all dressed up and everything, or you've been in a car for a few hours, you know. She said, you're all feeling all tight with all your clothes. She says, you just want to get somewhere and just strip off. You know what I mean? Marge just and I got there, we are, where she was coming from. I thought, yes. I mean, come on. I mean, I suppose if you're in a relationship, that's different, isn't it, Margish babies? Because if you're in a relationship, I suppose you can go full naked. There we are. You know what I mean, Margish babies? But, you know, but ones just wouldn't spare a thought and think, oh, come on, love. Come on, darling. Hello, good looking. You know what I mean? Come on, let's get down there. Let's go and get naked. You know what I mean? They just wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Oh, take me out for a posh meal any day of the week. You know what I mean? But don't expect me to, you know, show my threatening bits or my lettuce, because that is not going to be happening, dear. You know what I mean, Magic Spice? But if you just sort of be a bit more free, you know what I mean? It's adults only, but just to be more free. You know, you sit and you get talking to others. Even if you're single, you get talking to others. I mean, what a wonderful way. And if you go abroad, you know, you go in your you know, your birthday suit, you know what I mean? Well, what's wrong with that? As long as you're not, like anything, as long as you're not harming anybody else, I see no problem with that. I just believe that everybody's been made, there we are, old fashioned saying, too straight laced. That's what I believe, Marge babies. Anyway, I seen plenty of laces when I got off the bus. Rainbow. Just like the kite that I seen a few days ago. Rainbows. Okay, my delicious babies. Paint the whole world with a rainbow. Do 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 do. Seen a lot of that in the old pandemic and very sadly what followed, didn't we, my delicious babies? Love ya. Thank you once again for listening. For any likes, for any views. Take care. Love ya. Sorry about that. Goodbye.